Hello and welcome to Future Procurement. My name is Robert Freeman and today I'm happy to welcome André Bohems, the Senior Procurement Manager from Belgium. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
André, I know that you are an experienced procurement manager with more than 25 years in procurement.
Yes.
Please tell us your procurement story till now. What are the milestones in your career?
Okay, I think the first milestone for trying to explain my history in the procurement, it's I came in procurement by chance. During my military service, I applied a job for position in the NATO procurement department services, and I have been selected. And from that, I decided to stay in the procurement world. While I have a graduate of industrial engineer in electronics, but when I start to work in procurement, I clearly noticed that procurement is really what I want to do. I have the procurement mindset, and I think that I will never do everything than procurement. Well, and from that, when you have that in mind, you know that whatever you will do as a job in your career, it will be oriented in procurement, contract management, category manager, whatever you want. It will be procurement.
How come that you understood it? What exactly was it that you found interesting in this particular profession?
It's always new. Whatever you are doing in procurement, in different phases of a procurement of workflow. Even if there always the same repetitive actions, actions of phases, it's always new because you can manage every type of RFQs of contracts. There is always something new that will change the way of managing it, and that's what I like. It's always a new story. It's always a new challenge, and the experience that you are acquiring, it's always interesting because you can always find a solution in your experience. That's one of the major elements that really pushed me to do procurement. It's always a new story and a new challenge.
Interesting. And as I know from your background, you were really, as you said, going around procurement, but still having a different aspects of it. So you were working, as you said, contract manager. You were working as a supply chain manager, procurement manager, right?
Yeah, indeed, and that's why I say I had the chance with my experience to really going deep in every main category in every functions of a procurement manager. During my first part of my career in the NATO environment, I'll focus more on the management of contract, on the establishment of a contract, discussing what could be the main important contractual requirements to put in the request for quotation in order to have a good management of the contract. Because don't forget that procurement is purchase. But the first tool or the first mean that a procurement guy has to defend his purchase is the contract. Exactly. In the contract, you can put all the mechanism to guarantee that what you have agreed with the vendor will happen. And it's also a kind of protection for the vendor himself. That's why it's interesting. But you need to really focus on that because it's I would say the most important part. The first job of a procurement guy is to purchase and to guarantee to his internal customer that what he promised to purchase will be there in the right time, a good quality, and with the same budget. That's and then really during this first part of my career, I really had the chance to focus on this specific expertise and. It was very interesting because when you have understood that you can, also prepare the negotiation because those elements are negotiable. It depends on what you to which level of risk you are able to manage or not.
You mean when you tell about contract manager,
yes,
right? Okay.
Yes. For instance, a good example is the payment terms of the payment milestones. Do you agree to pay an advance amount? Yes or no? But if you accept, it means that you need to get more from the vendor. But on the other way, as you need to protect your early payment, you need to, with bank guarantee or performance bond, you need to guarantee that what you have put on the table at the very beginning of the contract will not be lost. I mean, you see, these kind of things also prepare the negotiation, and it also gives you a kind of assessment of the quality of the supplier, because if you are very strict on your terms and you don't want to pay before the acceptance of the delivery, and if the vendors does not accept, or maybe because he has problem to guarantee the delivery in good time, in a good shape. That's you see, you can. I don't say that it's definitely a mathematical criteria of evaluation, but you can assess that with experience. You can say, I can trust or I don't trust this guy. But that's I think that was my first part of my career as a contract manager. Okay. And the second part was more on the, I would say, the private world, where you really need to reduce the cost, to reduce the price. And during this period, I also I had the chance to graduate at USCP Europe as a procurement director. And during this phase, I really learned that a procurement guy needs to have a global view on what he's doing. I mean, a kind of helicopter view, not only taking into account what he has to manage as procurement, but to pay attention to every other elements that can influence his job. It can be what the competition is doing, it can be what the regulation is doing, it can be what is ongoing in the other department of his company. And this certification really helped me to understand, to set up this helicopter view. I like the word helicopter view, because with helicopter view, you take into account about how to manage how to manipulate, to handle the helicopter, but you have also to take into account everything which is around, above, on the right side, on the left side, everywhere, everything is important. And I think that when you manage a procurement department, or you have to manage a category, you have to take into account, and you have to have the same vision and the same approach, a helicopter view. Yeah. I don't know if it makes sense, huh?
It makes sense, absolutely. Very interesting. And maybe the first question that I have connected to your background in procurement and in the contract management is, if you say about these private companies and working, as you said, more in the more fast pace, reducing the cost and working in the private sector, comparing to you said you were working for NATO. What was the main differences? I mean, we were talking a little bit before the record button was pushed. Yeah. I mean, when you compare different companies between themselves, still it's procurement, and you said the general idea of procurement is very similar everywhere. But what are the main difference you recognize? Is it any critical difference that you recognize in different companies?
Well, we discussed that. In fact, my opinion is that every company, even if it's the same sector, like for instance telecom, but every company has its own DNA, and the procurement function, the procurement department, has to build its own DNA based on the DNA of the company which is serving. And we discussed that I had the chance to work in the telecom world, I had the chance to work in the cable operator world and in the biopharmaceutical world, and even for each of these companies, the procurement workflow is the same, or has to be the same, by the main phases, starting by the spend analysis, analyzing by the market trends, and starting to make some to formulate strategies and to apply them and to assess them. What is really important is to understand what is the DNA, what are the objectives of this company, and the procurement department has to build its own objectives based on that. And a good example is that in the telecom world, for instance, the level of investment in capex can be much more rapid, much more can occur much more often than in the biopharmaceutical world, simply because in the biopharmaceutical world, when you have set up your production line, you have to produce and that's it. Yeah. But you still need to make procurement strategy, and that means that in your approach of the vendors, you need to find other elements or the approach to other assets to engage in a partner strategy, in a strategic partnership with those vendors. They need that, but the approach is quite different. And while in the telecom world, where you know that you will invest a lot every year, I will not say it's more easier. It's not correct. It's another way. It's another approach. It's another way. It could be easier because you have more money, but the competition can be much more. And in any case, you cannot make an error because the volatility. I don't know if it's the correct name, but the volatility of the customer is so high that you make a wrong purchase. It can impact the number of customers that your company has. In the biopharmaceutical, what is really important is that when you have made a good purchase, you continue to have the same quality in the product, and eventually managing the support or the spare part management, everything which can guarantee that the product will stay at the same quality.
And probably the life cycle of each product is completely different, right?
Definitely. That's in fact one of the elements, and one of the other aspects can be what the external world is doing. If you have a lot of competition, if you have a lot of regulation to respect, all those elements can also influence how you are making your DNA of your procurement department. And
can you elaborate a little bit more about this, how to understand the DNA of the company you are working for? And obviously it's not every company who really has it, unfortunately. And I mean, how to identify, and what does it take to really grasp it, and how to use this knowledge of DNA of the company you're working for to build the DNA of your procurement organization?
Yeah, one of the first elements to analyze is the vision, mission, and priorities of the company. But also understand the market where they are playing, and look about what is the market is doing. It's also to understand how the organization is set up, and the relationship between the different departments, and especially the relationship between procurement and the other departments. Because don't come and say we need to follow this, that. If, for instance, procurement does not exist, or at least the function does not exist. It's simply a support, small function that is existing because they need to manage the order, but that's it. Then it is also important that you to take into account in your DNA. It's to understand the how you say that, the individuals. Objectives, and procurement may help some person to evolve in the company by providing the good support. You see, all those elements, as I just said before, having a helicopter view on what your company has to do will help you to set up your procurement function. And coming to a very important element is that more and more now you can see the different posts on LinkedIn and so on. We speak about creating value. Yes, in fact, by when you need to set up your DNA, or you want to understand the DNA of your company, what you have to understand is how the company is making margin, and how procurement can increase this margin with full respect of the risk management. That's the first element is to understand how procurement can bring, I would say, added value, but I prefer to say to bring additional benefits, margin. It's really that margin to the company, and then the other parts will come quite easily. One important element also to mention, and that's really critical for procurement, I think, is the return of investment of the actions that procurement is doing. It's not only to say, okay, you can invest that and you will recuperate very soon when you will sell that. No, it's also the procurement department itself has to have a return on investment very, very, very high, meaning that once a procurement guy is doing something, whatever he's doing, it has to have a return investment very, very quick.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? I mean, how do you really set the goals for it, and how do you follow up on that?
I mean, that's my understanding. But I mean, sometimes it's don't do or don't put a lot of or don't put procurement guys on an RFQ, for instance, where you know that what he will bring is nothing, because then you will pay him for nothing. Maybe it can be used for another aspect, for another RFQ. You see, that's what I say. The return on investment of procurement has also to be considered in the action that procurement is doing, and not only on the RFQs of the activities that they have to manage.
Okay, so it's rather from being the process oriented to being the result oriented, right?
Yes.
This is what we were discussing, I think, few episodes ago with another guest. We were talking about that what procurement people put in their action plans and what the company really gets in their bottom lines is very often so much different that you don't understand where all these activities have gone. What is your vision on that? How do you really make sure that the savings that you plan to make in your action plans are really harvested in the end, and the CFO of the company can say, yes, they have done their job?
Okay, now that's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult because you can elaborate a lot of different cost reductions, KPIs, tables or dashboards, whatever you want. What I think is really important is that the KPIs, the key performance indicator of procurement, should be managed not on a punctual or on a specific date, but they should be analyzed on a very long time frame, or the time frame of the project, the life cycle of the project, of the product. Like, for instance, you are elaborating total cost of ownership tables on the 5, 6, 7 years to understand what will be the maintenance cost at the very end. The KPI setup or the dashboard of procurement should be based on the same way. I mean, maybe the first year you will have a less important savings, but you will save on the maintenance aspects during years. And this has to be shown also by the procurement dashboard, I think. Because the procurement activities, it's not a short-term activity. It's not a short-term impact. They have a long-term impact. And then as those activities have a long-term impact, the measurement of those activities has to be also on a long-term time frame.
So once again, there is no unique tool or unified tool that can serve everybody, right?
I think that they certainly have. It is possible, but this tool should be sufficiently flexible to take into account that. Because it's only a question of, instead to work on 1 year time frame, you are different. And the rest the same. I mean, the KPIs remain the same, but it's really on the scope, on the perimeter of the analysis that has to be different, or they have to have the possibility to include that.
Good. Then, André, it leads me to another question that I planned to ask you about. What are the key elements that we need to measure for procurement department if I'm procurement manager? I mean, it's so many different angles that I need to measure and everything. What is the key KPI if you think in this very helicopter view as you described it? What should I say that, yes, if I have done this and this, then my department is doing well? or maybe what are the expectations from the key stakeholders of the company as you experienced different industries and different kind of companies?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and I don't have a very good answer about that. But if we stay on the helicopter view, somebody in the 2 or 3 years ago told me that good KPIs to measure if a project is successful or not, than if a procurement project is successful or not, is that to be sure that your internal customer, it could be customer itself, but your internal customer is happy, is satisfied. It must be sure that your department is satisfied. You have to guarantee that at the end of the day, the supplier is satisfied also with the project, and there is no risk put on the business. Voilà. If you have that, the project can be say that it's a success. It's very high level. It's very helicopter view, but I like this approach because at the end of the day, it's a good translation, or it's a good image of a partnership. Everybody is on a win-win situation.
Exactly. Nice. And as you said, there is no two companies which are exactly the same. And I think this advice you have given, or your friend has given to you, is very, very powerful, just because it applies to everybody more or less. So make your internal customers happy, make your suppliers happy, and avoid risk. Because you exactly like you said, with you can make everybody happy, but you will really walk on the thin line, and whatever bad happens can destroy everything you have done, right?
And I like that because it's really the good image of a partnership, because partnership is a win-win situation. If it's a win-win situation, that is, everybody is happy. Okay. That's it.
So probably talking to your internal customers, talking to your final consumers of the goods, maybe, or services that you provide, to understand what gives value to them, and then talking to your suppliers, and together, after bringing these ideas together, you would understand what are the key elements you need to succeed in.
Yeah, but it's really high level. I mean, you need to have other KPIs, but they are the standard KPIs.
Right.
But I mean, the mindset of a project, if you can, at the very end of the project, or maybe 1 or 2 months after the project has been concluded, you can eventually try to assess that when all the tension of the emotional aspect of the project is gone. Okay, simple question: are you happy? What did you like? Or what sort of kind of lesson? Well, this is really, I think it's very powerful.
Nice.
Also for the future, because you can build or not additional relationship and prepare the future.
Nice and very unusual approach, I would say. Are you happy? Is a good word. We are so much about percentage and decimals and things like that. But are you happy? It's a very powerful question.
Yeah.
Good.
I try to be simple.
Exactly. And it's difficult to be simple, right? Yeah. There is nothing more difficult than to be simple in what you do and what you say. Good. Fantastic. Really good tips, André. At least few of them I will note down and attach as show notes to this podcast. To this
thank
interview.
you very much.
And,
sorry if my English was not good enough.
No. It's perfect.
I was so excited to explain my ideas that maybe sometimes I was too quick in my speech. I'm sorry for that.
No, it's fantastic. And maybe we are now moving closer to the end of the interview. Maybe in the end we are the global audience here, and it's people from every corner of the world. Actually, when I look on the map of our listeners, we are in all continents except of one, very icy one. However, maybe they listen there. But what is the maybe 1 or 2 big ideas that you would like to share with our listeners who are passionate about procurement? What would you say from your viewpoint of being 25 plus years in this profession and loving the profession as much as you do? What could you say as a big idea or maybe advice for our listeners?
No, one point I would like to put on the table today, that I have the chance to have so important audience, is that procurement, we need to innovate in procurement, especially on this creation of added value, creation of additional margin for all companies. But I think we do need to not forget that procurement is really an old, very old expertise. From the very beginning, when the commerce starts, we start to purchase. And sometimes we are using, for instance, creation of added value and so on. Sometimes those terms are a little bit too complex for our customers. And then we need maybe to sometimes come back at the basic of the procurement elements and try to be simple. To say, we want that you sell more, because that is what is the scope of procurement, is to purchase well, to sell well.
Sounds fantastic and simple, as you said. Wow.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thank you.
I like it, André. And thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you so much for your time this early morning. And thank you so much for your enthusiasm and motivation for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you to you, Murat.
Thank you for being with us until the very end of this episode. I'm sure you liked this episode a lot. Today we were talking with André Bohems from Brussels, from Belgium, who is a senior procurement manager. And of course, it's fantastic to talk to such people who have a great experience in procurement, but also who have the so great knowledge of different concepts, and also kind of brings the much broader picture upon our procurement profession. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for being with us. Don't forget to subscribe to Future Procurement Podcast. Also rate and review this podcast and share it to your friends. My name is Robert Friedman and this is Future Procurement. We'll talk to you soon.